You know, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I really didn't think I'd be making a video today at all talking about someone we acquired because for the longest time, I really thought that Cheveldayoff was just gonna stand still and not really do anything. I thought that maybe he was not gonna buy because of the way the market was, if it was too much asking prices on the players and whatnot. And being at my job and the way it is, I can't check my phone constantly. So I was able to check maybe once every hour and a half. And after like around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I saw no news, I knew that this was going to be probably a nothing day for the Jets. But then out of nowhere, right as I go on my lunch break, bam, Jordie Benn is a Winnipeg Jet. And I honestly got to say, I don't hate this, and I know that this might be controversial because I've seen a lot of different Jets fans react to this. A lot of fans saying that they don't mind this for depth, a lot of fans saying that this isn't bad but they wanted more and blah blah. And right now, I kind of fall right in the middle of where everyone else is, I feel like. And I like this trade because I think Jordie Benn, although he's been terrible with the Canucks, I think we all can acknowledge that, was a pretty good depth, defensive specialist with the Montreal Canadiens. So if he can revert back to that form, and as also a guy who watches the Canucks pretty regularly, he was never really used well with the Canucks, in my opinion. So maybe he can bounce back, and I think that having him for depth, especially considering that all it cost was a 6th-round pick, you can't beat that, really. So it's one of those trades where it's like, would the Jets have been better to do nothing? I think no. I think giving up a 6th-round pick in this year's draft for a depth defenseman, as right as I am talking about this, Nikolai Ehlers scores the second goal of the game, 2-0 Winnipeg Jets against the Ottawa Senators. But nonetheless, getting back towards this video, I think that honestly this was not a bad move because now people are like, if you don't do anything to the lineup, right, and the defensive lineup stays the way it is, you have Logan Stanley as a young guy trying to get experience and playing better, and then you have a guy like Jordie Benn who can come in the playoffs, play a physical game, and be that extra defenseman that can come in and just be a little bit more experienced than what we have in the press box right now. And I'm okay with that because although I want to see Ville Heinola called up and Dylan Samberg getting some more, potential minutes with this team, I think that if you're going to have, depth for the playoffs, giving up a 6th-round pick for a guy that's, in my opinion, not the worst player ever, but a guy who's pretty solid. Honestly, I just think that is not a bad move, and I'm really not that upset about this. I'm more just upset at the fact that Cheveldayoff, stood still and didn't trade for some of the other guys. Like, for example, Mike Riley. That, a 3rd-round pick, the Jets could have easily matched that, and I think that would have been a good acquisition for the team moving forward. A guy like Alexiak as well, potentially. All these players that we talked about on this channel that have been rumored with this club for so long. The reason why we didn't get any of those guys is mostly because of the fact that Chevy didn't want to pay a lot. And I can understand that because we're going into an expansion draft. He wants to keep the 1st-round pick in case he has to make a deal with, Seattle and Ron Francis and whatnot, trying to make sure that he can keep Appleton and Lowry and Kopp without giving away one of those guys. I understand that. And if you look at it from every little angle that Cheveldayoff has to look at this trade deadline going into an expansion draft, it makes sense why he didn't give up a bunch of assets for a guy at a rental or even for a guy that would have a year left on his contract, because of the fact that Chevy probably believes, like I believe and most Jets fans believe, that the problem, that the solution to fixing this Jets defensive core is with the prospects. We have Ville Heinola, you have Declan Chisholm, you have Dylan Samberg, you have even Sami Niku, let's be honest, and Logan Stanley. Like, you've got so many potential young guys that you could kind of slot in anywhere and make it work potentially if Maurice wasn't so stubborn sometimes, that there's a lot of different ways this team can be shaped for the future defensively, and I have a lot of faith in those players and those prospects, and I'm curious to see how this team develops. So on a whole, looking at this day, seeing what happened after all the hype that us Jets fans built this day up to and expecting us to go out and get all these great players, Ekholm and Goligoski and whatnot, it comes down to the fact that Chevy thought it was better to still stand pat, make a trade for a depth guy, only giving up a 6, which, let's be real, doesn't have that much value anyway, for a guy who could, bounce back to a decent defensive form and play good for us. When you look in the past and see some of the defensemen that Chevy's been able to pick up for depth, Joe Morrow is a name that comes to mind. That was a pretty cheap get, who, in my opinion, was pretty good for us in that run in the Western Conference Final. And honestly, I think that maybe this Jordie Benn thing could be good for us. Yeah, I would have liked to see us do a little bit more, and it's always good to see a cup contending team that's trying to get to that window at the deadline. But if you're the Jets and you're looking at the way that your offseason is going to go with how many players you have are having career years, how much signing Neil Pionk and whatnot, the expansion draft, most likely Chevy's going to do something that he did with Vegas, and he's going to do something that can keep this team and keep the assets they have. So I understand why he did it. I would have liked to see more get done today, I'm not going to lie. But looking at what he did, looking at the player he brought in for the price he did, I think that this was a good depth move. I think it will have good repercussions for this team moving forward. Let's just hope that, let's just be grateful that he didn't trade Ville Heinola and all this stuff, all these stupid rumors that were up there, and he didn't go, buy high, in my opinion. And I think that's something that I was a little worried about and getting worried about going into this day, was that maybe we'd see a situation like the Kevin Hayes trade or something like that, where Chevy feels like he's forced to go out and get somebody and pay a high price, and he didn't do that today, which is something I'm very happy he didn't, because let's be real, we would be much happier with the way that this day went if it was just Jordie Benn. Jordie Benn. I wish it was Jamie Benn. But if it was Jordie Benn just coming this way for that 6th-round pick, and that's all it was, we'd be a lot more happier with that than if we given up a 1st-round pick and, Dylan Sandberg for a guy like, hell, even more for like Matthias Ekholm or whatnot. And I'm not saying I don't want Matthias Ekholm, but I don't want him for that price. So, yeah, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get more than a Jordie Benn. Excuse me, I guess it's going to take time to get used to. But nonetheless, I'm happy we got someone that can help this team in a playoff run, and it's going to be interesting to see what the lineup looks like when Jordie Benn gets here and whatnot, and if someone gets taken out of the lineup or whatnot. But I'm curious to know all of your guys' thoughts, Jets fans. What are your thoughts on this day so far? What did you want to see happen that didn't happen? Are you happy that Jordie Benn is now a Winnipeg Jet? Benny and the Jets, a pretty good nickname for him, so I'm pretty happy there. But nonetheless, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, if you're a fan of hockey, a fan of the Winnipeg Jets, or a fan of any team, regardless